So apparently this is the day the world's supposed to end. Hi.
Hi there. Do you want to say this is the opening? You do that when you started in the beginning. When you do it, I forget about that. Anyway, I have a question for you, and that is, we realize that that everything that we see, taste, touch, and smell is material, and then there are a group of people who believes there's also a spiritual aspect to our living. You told me, I think 2 weeks ago, that you lean towards the material. Everything is matter and motion. Why have you chosen that kind of a path, or as part of what you've built as a world?
Oh, I hate when that happens.
That's
I'm getting sick of editing that out. I'm probably just going to leave it in from now on.
okay. Yeah, tell them. You already did. I hate when that happens. Anyway, as I said, you say at this point you say that you believe there's more. Everything tends to be particles, or more particles than atoms, and that's it. Nothing else. In other words, things come into existence, but nothing ever disappears because it's energy. But the spiritual part, you're not able to grasp at this point. What makes you feel like? Why would you choose just looking into the material?
Well, I do believe in chakras and all that.
Okay. How about the, so there's an energy
and
level
Anunnaki
there?
And stuff. I believe in Anunnakis, the Greys, and all that stuff.
Which is basically a space civilization.
The Greys are aliens that are on a higher vibrational level than us.
Right.
So we can't see them. One could be sitting in the back seat, but we can't see them, touch them, feel them with any of our senses. They're on like another, like if there was another axis of space.
Mm-hmm.
That is like when you astral project, you've left your body before during surgery or something one time.
Right. During
and
a dental.
You went up in that frequency axis. So that's what a Gray might be doing in the back seat. It might be, they can actually go in and out of frequencies, change their frequency.
So are they always aware of us, or
yeah, they're apparently they're helping us.
And we only get glimpses or feelings about them, and occasionally they'll bring us
out of our bodies and bring them on their ships and teach us stuff.
Right. That's right. And they can float between walls. People have said they come through the rooms
because on their level, walls don't exist.
Right. So that's a different plane, a different dimension, as you were saying.
I don't like to use the word dimension because dimension is like math, like how dimension is width,
True.
depth. I like to use the word level or plane. Because dimension, that is a dimension, that all the planes are in one sort of axis of dimension.
Gotcha. So how about the energy of chi or ki? Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it.
Chi would be the Chinese word for it. Ki, Ki, would be the Japanese way of saying it. It's an energy system separate from our chakras, but runs through our body. Actually, runs through everything. It's everything. The closest I can say you put through what is it? There's particles that go right through the earth and through us. Is it neutrons?
Neutrinos.
Neutrinos.
They're they have so little mass, it's almost zero.
Right.
It's like the closest you can get to zero almost.
So do they go through lead even?
They go through everything.
Right.
They can squeeze between atoms. They're so small. They can They can squeeze between quarks, probably.
Which, by the way, then, is with that little bit of that conversation we had on email the other day. I sent you. I was actually conversing with another person, and because your name was up top, I just hit clink, and then I accidentally was talking to you. I was like, when you sent me a message back, it was like, how did he get involved in this? My mistake. But anyway, if the energy, if you were to take atoms and look at them scientifically, as far as space goes, you have your core, which is what the nucleus, and then if you were to, and then the electrons spinning around it are at a distance. If you were to bring the nucleus up to the size of a marble, put it on a, I think you said the football field, then the electrons would be all the way around.
All the way on the outer seats.
So if you were able to reduce the space or get rid of the electrons, just bring all the nucleus together, all the human race would fit in a grain or a size of a piece of rice. Is that what it said? Does that make sense to you?
One grain of rice. If you can squeeze it down, and that's like, because atoms are separated by a lot of mass.
Right.
By a lot of space. They're separated by a lot of space because of electromagnetic forces. And then those electrons, they can intertwine, go between atoms, and that's what causes molecules to form, because they're linked together. The highest number of electrons you can have in an atom or a molecule set is 8. So if hydrogen and oxygen has 7, I think, and hydrogen only has 1. So if you put them together, then that's 8. No. Oxygen has 6 electrons. That's why it needs 2 hydrogen atoms. Because hydrogen only has 1, so 6 plus 1 plus 1 equals 8. So that's why water is so common.
Common here on Earth. Maybe in the universe.
It is really uncommon for something with more electrons or less electrons. That's called an ion.
Okay.
It has too much electrons or too little electrons. And it's also uncommon for an isotope. An isotope is something with more or less neutrinos. I mean, not neutrinos, neutrons.
Neutrons. A neutrino could go through all of this because that space is so big for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And then, oh my god. And then, sometimes isotopes can cause it to be too much neutral charge in it, that it starts to become unstable, and it starts to just break apart, and then that's what causes atoms to decay, because it has too much protons or too much neutrons or something. So it just starts decaying until it equals out.
So when we smash an atom, which creates an atomic bomb in essence, if we do it that way, it releases a tremendous amount of energy. Where is that energy stored? In that almost infinitesimal small neutron?
No, the whole atom.
The whole atom.
We smash apart the whole atom and all the energy, because Einstein's thing says that it takes a very small amount of matter to make an immense amount of energy. Because one little atom, if you smash it, it makes a whole nuclear explosion.
Right, which is tremendous.
Yeah.
It can wipe away whole cities and destroy all that. So by just releasing the energy that's condensed into that tiny thing, we'll do something like that. So could all of this be the result of an atom could a whole universe be the result of a bigger type of atom that somewhere would explode it? And all this energy's been released?
That's crazy.
It just came to my mind
Probably.
while we were talking. Maybe there
Probably.
was at one time a bigger atom than what we think of, and somebody released the energy, or somehow it was released, and here it is, taking up different forms constantly. Everything's changing and in flux and alive. So anyway, getting back to the original question is then, you go beyond your typical materialistic. You enjoy that, but your mind is open to the Anunnaki, the different dimensions of the grays and things like that. And how much of an effect do you think they have on the human race? Are they?
I think they have a lot of effect.
See,
but
now the Bible refers to angels, which only means messengers, and most of them are not materialistic, but then they can condense and become like a human form.
like Jesus did.
Right. So we have that kind of a situation. So you can at least entertain that in your mind, that you can go from being immaterial to materialize. Or incarnate into material, which is another thing, which is why if it's a wrong kind of energy, they call that a possession. Something possesses somebody and they become very evil, very dark. And I have met a few people that I have seen that were pretty evil, pretty dark. Then you have the
because
positive.
you're a cop.
Right. As a cop, I have sat in front of them and literally could see the evil exuding from them. It's like, wow. Yeah. So I'm wondering if the music will be picked up on there.
Well, if I can hear it, it can probably go as far as the speaker.
Yeah. Oh, you might not
Do
be
a bit
able
of
to.
background music.
Yeah, you may not be able to play it though. Play this interview.
It is so muffled that YouTube probably can't pick it up. Pick up what song it is.
Okay.
And if I get a copyright strike on a little song, it's fine. I can get copyright strikes on songs, but if I copyright videos or stuff like with that air thing, with the UFO, where the planes were chasing the UFO,
Right.
I can't upload that. Because it's copywriting video.
It's already copyright, so you're not allowed to snatch it out.
But I can do music.
Oh, okay.
Which is weird.
Well, let's go do some weightlifting.
All right.
We'll continue on. If we think of something, we can do it. I mean, I can always ask the age-old question that starts conversation. What is the meaning of life?
Probably to find the meaning of life. But then there's no purpose in living if we know that.
Find out.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. All right, so once we find out why we're supposed to be here.
No, we already found out because we're here. The meaning of life is to find out the meaning of life. And since I found that out just then there's no point in living.
So let's commit suicide.
Yeah.
What's the purpose? So then the other question is, why are you here? Why are we here?
Yeah. Find out why we're here.
You put it into a circle question, huh? That's pretty good.
Totally demolishing this lid.
So we're here strictly to find out why we're here. And then once we do, what is the meaning of it then, right? Why? Or what is it to be a good person? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be a good person?
Not be a bad person.
Yeah, that's a little bit too simple.
don't kill anybody, don't lie, don't do any of that stuff. Well, I mean, sometimes you have to lie, but...
I was going to say, what about a soldier who has to kill somebody? Could they be doing it for the good?
Yeah. I guess.
So then what does it mean to be a good person? Because if you kill somebody, then that's not a good person. That rules out a lot of people. Police officers kill people.
Did you ever have to kill people?
No. Came close a couple times.
Like what?
Maybe having to shoot somebody.
Well, why'd you almost have to shoot him?
Well, one of the cases is we got a call to a house that a suspect had broken into and had severely beaten a woman. And when the first officer got there, I was close, and he said they gave a description out and said that the suspect was seen heading towards this mall, which is then called Golden Ring Mall. So I I made a right into the mall instead of a left into the community where the person had got beaten up. And they gave me the description as I'm riding up, and it was dark. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and the mall had just closed. And I see the suspect walking towards the end of the building, towards the doors going into a store that was closed. It had been already locked. So I got on the radio and I said, I have the suspect. Oh, and he was bleeding. He was bleeding real bad. I could see the blood running down his hand. He cut himself real bad when he broke the window to get into the house. And he cut his arm real bad. So I said, hold me out. I have the suspect over here at the mall. Well, I didn't realize it, but the woman who got beaten really bad, her sons were in there, and they heard me say that over the radio because the officer that was handling the call.
What'd you say over the radio again?
I said, hold me out with the suspect. He's over at Golden Ring Mall trying to get into Hustlers. I think it was Hustlers.
And the woman that got beat up?
Her son, now she's about from here to maybe those cars over there away, a good distance away, in another home. The officer, his radio, he heard me, but then so did they. Well, I didn't know it, and he didn't even realize it, but the two sons left the house. And what they ended up doing is they ran over and picked up two metal poles, and they were running to come over to get the guy that I had. So now, as I got out of the police car, and I walked up to the suspect, I patted him down, and I grabbed him by the arm. I handcuffed him, and I grabbed him by the arm. Now, once I did that, he was under arrest. Now, even though he's a criminal, once you place somebody under arrest, you're responsible for that. So, I handcuffed him. I turned around and walked him back to my police car, and I hear these two young men yelling they're going to beat him up, and we're going to get you, we're going to get you. And I looked, and it was a parking lot that was fairly lit up, not real lit up, but then I noticed they were both running, and they had these long metal poles in their hands. So I yelled out to them, stop, drop the poles. They kept coming. Now, my suspect sees them coming with these poles in his hand, so he's trying to get away from me. He's trying to so he can run. He didn't want to get clobbered with these poles. So I'm holding on to him, can't let him go because I already placed him under arrest. And they kept running at me. Now, they weren't even listening to me. They were yelling about how they were going to kill him when they got to him. So I yelled again, stop. So I pulled out my service revolver because I can't let them, they now have, so you're allowed to move to a weapon that's beyond what they had. They had heavy metal poles. I had a gun, so I pulled out my gun and I pointed it at them and I said, stop, stop. And they kept running. Well, finally, it registered. The young guy in the back, just a few feet from his other brother, he stops real quick and drops the pole. I hear the pole hit the ground, clang, and the other one keeps running. He didn't even hear me. He's looking at me, and he wants to beat the guy I'm holding. Finally, as I'm yelling, stop, or I'll shoot, it hits him, and he was only about maybe 20 feet away when he stopped real fast and dropped the pole. Now, my suspect's heart was beating my heart was beating just as fast, because if he'd have come another 4 or 5 feet closer, I'd have had to shoot. Because there's no way I could hold my suspect. I'm not going to get hit with a pole. He could hit me with a pole, hit the guy with a pole, kill us. So I was trying to. So after they stopped, the bad news was, I found out later when we figured it all out, is they were a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old brothers. So if I would have shot a 16-year-old kid who was trying to protect his mother-in-law, to give revenge because his mother got beat up by this stranger, probably wouldn't have looked good. Even though what I would have done would have been legal. But I'm glad I didn't shoot or kill a 16-year-old kid that was just super angry.
Yeah.
So angry that he couldn't register that that he didn't see my gun or me yell or hear me do it. That's how angry he was. And that's the problem with emotions.
Yeah.
Emotions can override rational thinking. And he came real close. Like I said, another 3 seconds, 2 or 3 seconds, and I'd have had to squeeze around off him. And we always shoot to kill. We don't shoot to wound. Because if I shoot the wound and I miss, and let's just say hit him in the other arm or shoot him in the leg, and he keeps coming, and then he hits the guy and clobbers my suspect now and kills him. Now I'm at fault for both. I should never allow my guy to get hit, and I should have never fired a shot that just wounded the person. Whenever a police officer shoots,
I think it's wrong to shoot to kill.
It sounds natural, and I understand why.
I think if somebody's running at you, you shoot him in the knees.
Well, see, now remember, I'm holding a guy trying to get away. So if I would have tried to aim for a knee that's coming at me, you're narrowing down a body that big to an area that big. If I miss and it goes between his legs and he hits my guy, because in 3 seconds he'd have been there.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm responsible for his death. I'd be sued by his family. Even though he was a criminal, I was responsible for him. And then I would have shot a kind of a good guy in a weird way, but who, through his anger and his emotions, became a bad guy. And he was yelling, "I'm going to kill him. I'll beat the crap out of you. I'm going to kill you." So they were yelling while they were running. So I knew what their intent was, and I had to stop them. So that's one of those catch-22s for a police officer, because if I would have shot him, the next day news would have been, police officer shoots 16-year-old who was trying to get even because his mother's house was broken into and the guy beat her up real bad. And he did beat her up real bad. And it was just a nut. My guy was just a nut. There was no connection as to why he chose her. He apparently was just coming through and he decided to break into a home and did that.
Was he robbing the house and she got in the way or something?
Well, that we don't know, because she screamed when he was beating him up that he ran out the door. A few minutes later, our police officer arrived. He gave out the description, and just a few minutes later than that, I had him under control. So it went down pretty fast. And then, the bad news too, then I had to call an ambulance for my guy because he really slit his arm really bad. He was bleeding really. He was just blood all over the place. And that's the day in the life of a police officer, trying to make quick decisions that could have affected my whole life, because even though it would have been what they call a valid shooting, I had the right to do that because I wanted to protect myself and the guy I had under arrest. I'd had to live with the fact that if this kid wouldn't have been running with a pole in his hand, I would not have had to shoot him. But I did shoot and kill a young man. So, needless to say, it was one of those times where my knees were knocking and my breathing pattern got really hard after that. I had to sit down once the other officer, my other backup got there. It was like, and the kid had no idea how close he came to being killed. I don't think it even registered that I was that close to killing him.
I was going to say, couldn't you rip the poles out of their hands? But you had a guy in one hand and a gun in the other.
That's right. Can't do it. And I'm responsible for the guy's life at that moment. Anything that happens, I'm responsible for. Then once I take him to the police station, even then, the government's responsible for him. If he gets sick, the government takes him to the hospital. If his tooth starts, we have where they get arrested. They say they have a toothache. We got to take them to a dentist. If they say they have a stomach ache, we take them to the hospital because they're ours. They're under our custody at that point.
Mm-hmm.
All right, hit your off
All
button.
right.